إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الكلام كلام الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. Indeed, Ikhwan, as I'm sure the brothers and sisters are aware, that the title for our lecture is that which is related to Christmas and the celebration of Christmas, and something from its history and the Islamic position concerning that. Ikhwan, as far as our topic is concerned, then indeed, Ikhwan, the topic of Christmas and the celebration of these festivities, the lights of these festivities, in order for us to understand the topic first and foremost, it is first and most that we understand one or two of the principles related to the affair of celebrating festivities or joining in festivities generally. Generally, Ikhwan, there are a number of narrations and a number of ahadith that indicate that the origin, Ikhwan, in relation to the celebration of a festivity that is not present within the deen of al-Islam is that the asl concerning the festivities of the non-Muslims is it is impermissible, Ikhwan, for us to resemble them and to join in with those festivities and with those celebrations. And that is on the basis of the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu "Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum." Whosoever resembles the people, then he is from them. And our scholars have mentioned that the affair of resemblance is not that we have to be different to the kuffar in every single affair and to the non-Muslims in every single affair. Rather, it is that which is specific to the festivities and those things that are specific to them. Those things that are specific to them, rites, rituals, that which is those things that are held sacred, that return back to their religion and so on. Then these practices, it is impermissible, Ikhwan, for us to resemble them upon that. The Messenger of Allah, he mentioned, as we said, "Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum." And concerning that hadith, whomsoever resembles a people, then he is from them. Concerning the hadith, the Messenger in this hadith, Ikhwan, established a principle for the Muslimun. Imam al-Manawi, he mentions, وَقِيلَ الْمَعْنَى مَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِالصَّالِحِينَ فَهُوَ مِنْ أَتْبَاعِهِمْ يُكْرِمُ كَمَا يُكْرَمُونَ أو يكرم كما يكرمون ومن تشبه بالفساق يهان ويظل كهم وما وضع عليه علامة الشرف أكرم وإن لم يتحقق شرفه. He mentions that some of the scholars, they hold that the meaning of this hadith, whosoever resembles a people, then he is from them, that it carries the meaning that whosoever resembles the salihun, whomsoever resembles the righteous, then he is from their followers, and he is ennobled as they were ennobled. And whosoever resembles the fusaq, yani the evildoers and the wrongdoers, then he will be humiliated like them. And whosoever places upon himself alamat al-sharaf, or adorns himself with the signs of nobility, then he is ennobled. Even if he does not reach full nobility, or the nobility of the one that he follows, but he still reaches and achieves something from nobility on the basis of his attempting to emulate people of nobility. Likewise, ikhwan, we have the statement of Imam al-San'ani, who mentions والحديث دال على أن من تشبه بالفساق كان منهم أو بالكفار أو بالمبتدعة في أي شيء مما يختصون به من ملبوس أو مركوب أو هيئة. That is, that he mentions that the hadith is indicative, and it indicates that the one who resembles the fusaq, the evildoers, that he is from them, or with the kuffar, or with the mubtadi'ah, the people of innovation, in any of the things that are specific to them. And it is this, brothers and sisters, that we need to reflect upon, for it is the asl and the origin in regards to this principle. That is his statement, في أي شيء مما يختصون به من ملبوس أو مركوب أو هيئة. That is, whoever resembles them in anything that is specific to them. And that, brothers and sisters, is the operative word. In anything that is specific to them, from their malbus, from garment, from markub, from the things that they, from their riding beasts, specific riding beasts that they may ride for on special occasions, for example, or during certain festivities or what have you, or hay'a, or the outer form that they have, the outer, their adornments and what have you. Similarly, we have the statement of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala. Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in his book Iqtida' Sirat al-Mustaqim, in volume 1, page 237, هذا الحديث أقل أحواله أن يقتدي تحريم التشبه بأهل الكتاب وإن كان ظاهره يقتدي كفر المتشبه بهم. That he mentions that this hadith, the least that can be said concerning it is that it necessitates that it is impermissible and haram to resemble the people of the book. وَإِنْ كَانَ ظَاهِرُهُ يَقْتَدِي كُفْرَ الْمُتَشَبِّهِ بِهِمْ. Even if he outwardly holds that they are upon kufr. And so generally, ikhwan, the principle is that in regards to customs, customary practices, beliefs, those things that are specific to them, then it is not permissible for us to resemble them upon that. But no doubt there are certain things that we're all going to be united upon. We're all, it is permissible, for example, a person shouldn't go beyond bounds in regards to the qa'idah and make everything impermissible. We cannot now drive Fords because kuffar drive Fords. La, that's not it. That is not the intent. Or we cannot eat cornflakes because the kuffar eat cornflakes. Ikhwan, the qa'idah should be understood in its correct light, and that is in those things that are specific to them. Those things that are specific to them, and that, as we mentioned, ordinarily revolves around their customary practices. Imam al-Manawi, he mentions والتشبه يقع في الأمور القلبية من الاعتقادات والإرادات ويقع في الأمور الخارجية الظاهرة من العبادات والعادات. He said that this resemblance occurs in regards to the affairs of the heart, from the i'tiqadat, and from the belief and from the intents, and it likewise occurs in the outer affairs, from the acts of worship that one carries out and from some of the customary practices that one carries out, and some of the customary practices that one carries out. And it should be understood, ikhwan, that it is not just the kuffar that there is this affair of, or the prohibition against resembling them in regards to that which is specific to them. but rather we find throughout the Sharia a number of other categories of individuals or of aspects of the creation even that it is impermissible for us to resemble. From them we have that which is related, for example, to the people of Jahiliyyah, that is the people of pre-Islam, prior to the coming of the Messenger of Allah, that there is, and there are some texts, ikhwan, and this is not the place to go into detail concerning that, but there are texts that indicate the impermissibility of resembling them in those things that are specific to them and their customary practices. Likewise the shaitan, that there are a number of texts that indicate the impermissibility of resembling the shaitan. يعني لا تأكلوا بالشمال فإن الشيطان يأكل بالشمال. Don't eat with your left because verily the shaitan eats with his left. Don't wear one shoe or one slipper or one sock, as many of Ahlul Ilm hold, because indeed the shaitan wears one slipper. And other than that, from the text that revolve around not doing and carrying out those things that are specific to the shaitan and to the way of the shaitan. Likewise, it is impermissible for us to resemble the mubtadi'ah, the people of innovation. And that is something, ikhwan, that we find particularly in the statements of our Salaf and in the statements of the Sahaba, ridwanullahi alayhim. So those things that have now become specific signs of the mubtadi'ah, then they are no doubt avoided by the people of Sunnah. For example, the wearing of a turban no doubt was something that was done by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when wearing a green turban with a point has now become symbolic of the Naqshbandiyah, then ikhwan, Ahlul Sunnah avoid wearing the zay and the garments that are specific or that are now rumuz or signs and symbols of that particular type of mubtadi'ah. Similarly, ikhwan, there is a prohibition against us resembling, or in the text and the nusus of the Kitab and the Sunnah, there are texts that indicate the impermissibility of resembling the fusaq, yani evildoers, wrongdoers, and that a person, ikhwan, stays away from resembling the path and the tariq of the fusaq, and that a person is not branded or labeled among them. From the things that the scholars of hadith, ikhwan, used to mention in relation to the adala of, or the characteristic of uprightness that is part of a narrator being trustworthy, is that they say that he should be free of the major sins, and likewise that he should be free of the khawarim al-muru'ah, that he should be free, ikhwan, of committing and carrying out major sins, and the khawarim al-muru'ah. The khawarim al-muru'ah are those things which are not necessarily haram, but people of nobility, people of knowledge and so on, so forth, they would not carry out those actions. They are actions that are carried out by the fusaq and by the people of but sinful people. And so, ikhwan, when a particular type of garment is worn ordinarily by the sinful people, then the people of nobility avoid wearing that type of garment. When a particular practice is carried out by the people of fisq and sin, then those practices are avoided by the people of sunnah. And that is, ikhwan, so that the believer is distinct in regards to his character, in regards to his practice, in regards to his adat, in regards to his morals and ethics. He's distinct, and he doesn't resemble those individuals that Allah Azza wa Jal may be displeased with something from their practices. Likewise, ikhwan, even haywanat, even from the animals, there are animals that we have, or there are ahadith that indicate the impermissibility of resembling certain animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Messenger of Allah had prohibited us, for example, from making sujood and going down on one's forearms as dogs go down. And going down on one's forearms as dogs go down. And there are many, ikhwan, examples of the impermissibility of resembling particular animals when one carries out certain practices. And on the basis of that, we find some of the fatwa and the verdicts from our scholars around women growing long nails. Not only does it oppose the hadith of the fitrah, that the Messenger placed a period of 40 days for cutting the nails. The nails are not allowed to grow for longer than a 40-day period, but likewise that it resembles animals that have claws, or that have that type of or long nails that are specific to those animals, and should not, or that human beings should not resemble them in regards to growing their nails in that manner or in that fashion. So this affair of tashbih and avoiding resembling these categories of individual is something that we find, brothers and sisters, repeating itself throughout the Sharia, and repeating itself throughout the text of the Kitab and the Sunnah when one analyzes the texts that are specific to this affair of resemblance generally. And so, when that is the case, Ikhwan, when it is the case that we have a number of ahadith and texts prohibiting that, I'll bring you back, before we enter into our topic, to the statement of Imam al-Manawi, that Imam al-Manawi mentions that this tashbih and this resemblance, it occurs in the affairs of the heart, the umur al-qalbiyah, the affairs related to the heart, from the i'tiqadat, from the beliefs and from intents. And that is that a person carries out a particular action, and though the action may be a normal action, when his intent was to do that which was to carry out, or that his intent was in line with the intent of the kuffar, specifically when they carry out a particular action. So though the action may be customary as far as he's concerned, when he carries it out in that manner, with that intent, then he resembles the kuffar. And that indicates then that affair, ikhwan, the affair of resemblance, doesn't necessitate that the action itself has to be an action that they specifically carry out. But the action may be adi, the action may be a regular action, but when the intent is to fall in line with one of their intents, an intent that is specific to them, then that, ikhwan, is and falls around or returns back to the affair of tashbih. For example, a person may be walking on the pavement, and as before he places his step or his foot, he moves it slightly to the right. Now the action in and of itself is a regular action. He places his foot down, prior to putting his foot down, he moves it to the right and places it in a particular place. But when we inquire concerning his intention, we find that he intended to move it slightly to the left because he didn't want to step on a crack in the pavement, because stepping on cracks is bad luck. Now the irada, or the intent now, though the action was a regular action, the intent is an intent that falls in line with a specific belief of theirs, that it is impermissible for us to believe in or for us to follow them upon. Likewise, another person walking upon the street, he walks as he proceeds and comes out of a shop, for example. When he leaves the shop, he steps slightly to the left and then exits. When one inquires concerning why he stepped to the left, he responds by saying that, well, there was a ladder there and I didn't want to walk underneath the ladder. And so here, though the action was a regular action, his intent falls in this affair, falls upon this affair of tashbih, him believing that walking on the ladders is bad luck and so on. Likewise, he mentioned وَيَقَعَ فِي الْأُمُورِ الْخَارِجِيَّةِ الظَّاهِرَةِ مِنَ الْعِبَادَاتِ وَالْعَادَاتِ, that it falls likewise upon this affair of resemblance. It falls upon the umur al-kharijiyya, the outer actions, those outer actions that are related to ibadah, to worship, and likewise related to aadat, related to customary practices. Yani the ibadah, the acts of worship, I'm sure that it's clear that it's not permissible for us to carry out those acts of worship that they would carry out and that are specific to them. As far as the acts of worship that we all, that we're possibly united upon, then, for example, supplication, that there are a number of religions that supplicate, similar to the manner in which we supplicate. So it is not now said that we should leave making dua because there are other religions that make dua and we don't want to resemble them. La. Those things that are specific to them. Those things that are specific to them. So for example, to eat bread and grape juice, holding that we're resembling them upon eating the blood and the flesh of Jesus Christ, mathalan. And that, no doubt, ikhwan, on top of it being kufr and diametrically opposed to that which we believe in, it likewise falls upon this affair of tashbih. And he mentions wal-'adat, and in their customary practices. And from those practices, ikhwan, is the celebration of certain festivities. From those celebrations, for example, the celebration of birthdays. As I'm sure you're aware, ikhwan, the Muslim does not practice celebrating and does not celebrate birthdays because of the fact that it is not something that was left by our Prophet or any of the Prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal. Neither was it a practice that was held and carried out by the followers of the Prophets, the righteous. Rather, we see, ikhwan, it is something that has its origin in pagan practice and in pagan belief. And brothers and sisters, this is something that we need to understand, that many of the festivities and many of the forms of celebration revolve around, or when we analyze them, we see that the origin of those practices are practices that are found or find their origins within paganism. And that is no doubt the case, brothers and sisters, with the celebration of Christmas, as we're going to see. And so, ikhwan, the affair of the celebration of Christmas is something that returns back to, two words in essence, Christ and Mass. Christ and Mass. That as far as the word Christ is concerned, then something that needs to be highlighted, ikhwan, is that Isa ibn Maryam, as you'll find in the Kitab and in the Sunnah, you will never find a mention of Christ. Because Isa, ikhwan, Isa, which is translated as Jesus, Isa, you can hear the resemblance as far as the translation is concerned, the Greek translation of Isa, Jesus. But Christ, ikhwan, it should be known that Christ, the word Christ in and of itself, it does not find its origin in the Kitab or in the Sunnah. That you will not find the origin of the word Christ in the Kitab or in the Sunnah. Rather, you will find, ikhwan, that the word Christ is one that has Greek origin. It is one that has Greek origin, and it is taken from the Greek word Christos, which carries the meaning, or the similar meaning, or is the Greek translation, if you like, of the word al-Masih, the Messiah or the Anointed One. So the term Christ is one that doesn't find its origin in the language of Isa ibn Maryam, which was Aramaic. Aramaic, ikhwan, the term is not an Aramaic word, rather it is one that returns back to the Greek language, and it is the Greek translation of the word Masih, yani the Messiah. And it carries the meaning, no doubt, of the Messiah, but the point that we're trying to make is that Christ is not a word, ikhwan, and not a title that was given to Isa ibn Maryam, or that he was known for indeed his language was not the Greek language. So the term Christmas comes from the affair of Christ and the word Mass. Some differ concerning the meaning of the term Mass, that some hold that it actually means death, that it's a word that carries the meaning of death. And so the term then, Ikhwan, Christmas, is one that does not find its origin, as we mentioned, in the original language that was spoken by Isa ibn Maryam, just as many of the terms that we find being used for Jesus do not find its origin in the language of Isa ibn Maryam. And the term that we often times hear being used concerning Isa is that in the Bible, Christians refer to Isa as Emmanuel. And you'll find that being present in a lot of Christmas hymns, that they'll use the word Emmanuel. And it should be known, Ikhwan, that the term Emmanuel is one that is used to mean God with us. And so when it is said, and when we're speaking about the celebration of Christmas, we're speaking first and foremost about a term that does not return back to the language of Isa ibn Maryam himself. And likewise, we're speaking about a belief that returns back to not only the celebration of what they claim or what they say is the birth of the Son of God and the Son of Allah, wal-iyadu billah, but it is likewise the celebration of the birth of God Himself. And brothers and sisters, that statement, without doubt, I'm sure, Ikhwan, I don't have to explain to you the tremendous nature and the severity of the statement. That we should believe that our Creator, our Lord, our Sustainer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Alim, Al-Aziz, that He was given birth to. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, Takadu samawat, that indeed the heavens are close to splitting and being cleft asunder. وَتَنْشَقُ الْأَرْض, and the earth is close to being split, and the mountains are close to shattering, that they should attribute to Allah a son. So not only do we have the attribution of a son to Allah, and the claim that this is the day that we celebrate the birth of the Son of Allah Azza wa Jal, but they say, and may Allah Azza wa Jal be far removed, Ikhwan, from that which they say and that which they claim, that this is likewise the celebration of the birth of Emmanuel, the birth of God with us. And so, Ikhwan, the celebration of such an affair is something that no Muslim in his right mind can condone. That no Muslim in his right mind can condone the belief or accept, Ikhwan, the belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was born, and that we should somehow be happy and join in with such a celebration. And it is for that reason that we find our scholars mentioning that it is kufr to congratulate or to join in with the salutations for the likes of Christmas, Happy Christmas and so on. Because that would be to say, or that would be to congratulate them, or to say that indeed may you enjoy your celebration of the birth of God. Wal-iyadu billah. Concerning that, we have the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn al-Qayyim, Ikhwan, he mentions in Ahkam Ahl al-Dhimma, Volume 1, page 205, that congratulating the kuffar for symbols specific to kufr is unanimously prohibited, such as saying to them blessed festival or happy holiday or the likes. A person who says this ranges between committing an act of utter kufr or great prohibition. His action is equivalent to congratulating them for prostrating to the crucifix. And this sin is more severe and hated by Allah than congratulating someone for drinking alcohol, committing murder, committing adultery, and so on. And many of those who do not have a true regard for the deen indulge in such acts, not realizing the ugliness of what they do. And a person who congratulates others for a sin, a bid'ah, or an act of disbelief would be liable to Allah's abhorrence and Allah's wrath, and Allah's anger. Similarly, Shaykh bin Uthaymeen has a fatwa, ikhwan, where he mentions that it is impermissible to congratulate or to join in with such salutations, saying, ikhwan, that it is prohibited, just as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala has mentioned. And that is, without disrespect to them in any way, without dishonoring them in any way, but that it is something that returns back to the very core of Muslim belief and opposes the very core of our belief, ikhwan, that Allah Azza wa Jal, or that we should believe that Allah is born, or that we should congratulate someone for celebrating the birth of Allah Azza wa Jal, or the birth of one that is attributed to Allah as a son. And when none of those affairs could possibly have occurred, then ikhwan, our congratulating one upon that is nothing but folly. What should be said though, ayyuhal ikhwan, is that the celebration of the date to the 25th of December is not something, ikhwan, that returns back to anything established upon Isa ibn Maryam concerning his birth. Because what is the haqq in relation to the birth of Isa ibn Maryam is that we don't actually have a date when Isa ibn Maryam was born. Though some historians, that is Christian historians, return the affair in actuality back to somewhere in the region of autumn time, according to some of the biblical scripture, that some biblical scripture would indicate that he was born around the autumn time. But the most that can be said is that is just a very, very broad approximation. But what is definitely the case is that he was not born upon the 25th of December or anywhere near the end of the year. So what has to be asked then is, where in actuality did this celebration come from, and where did this period come from? What should be known, ikhwan, is that when many of the Christian nations around the globe, whether it be in the European world or outside of the European world, when they in their origin, ikhwan, were people of paganism, we see, and when we study the ways and the paths of paganism and the various practices or pagan practices and the various pagan denominations, you'll find, ikhwan, that they are united generally in certain practices, and there are certain things that they carry out that you'll find them, even though they believe in gods that differ one from another, you'll find them practicing and carrying out certain practices and sharing in doing similar things. And thus, as it relates to this affair of the 25th of December, then it should be known, ikhwan, that the 25th of December is a date that has been placed for the celebration of many pagan festivals, or many the pagan festivals worshipping various pagan gods. That it was something, ikhwan, that was, or it was a date that was placed for a pagan festival that was practiced by the ancient Persians when they would worship various gods like Baal and others. Similarly, ikhwan, it is a period that was laid down for the place known as Dionysus, which is in Greece, and the worship of some of the Greek gods like Attis and others. And similarly, it was a period that was placed down and was claimed to be the time that the god Mithras, who was a Persian god, that he was born. And it likewise should be highlighted that in all of these pagan religions, it is always said that it is the time of the birth of something. This period of the 25th was a well-known date that was used to signify the birth of whether it be their gods or whether it be in the ancient Roman festival which was known as Saturnalia. Saturnalia, ikhwan, was a pagan Roman festival. During Saturnalia, they used to carry out wild acts of debauchery. This practice was something that took place at the exact same time, ikhwan, the 25th of December. And during that time, ikhwan, the practices were so terrible that they would practice, it would be drunkenness, debauchery, and they would carry out all types of acts of lewdness, homosexuality, and it would likewise, ikhwan, tie in with another practice or another festival of theirs known as Juvenalia. And during Juvenalia, children used to drink and get drunk, and likewise join in with the sexual malpractice of the adults while they were in a drunken state. The children themselves would join in that because of the fact that this festivity known as Juvenalia would tie in with Saturnalia, which was in honor of their god, their pagan god Saturn. And so that would begin, ikhwan, from the middle of December, this festivity, Saturnalia. It would begin from the middle of December, and it would continue until the 1st of January, ordinarily. And on the 25th of December, they would say that the 25th was the birth of the unconquerable sun. Because what they would say was that the days which got shorter and shorter the further down into the winter we got. And then from the 25th of December and that which comes after it, they used to believe the days began to get longer. And so they would say that then is the time, or the beginning of the time, that the sun would regain its dominance. And so during this period of the sun regaining its dominance, they would say that on the 25th of December, precisely, they would say that the 25th was the day that the unconquerable sun was born again. That is, it began to regain its dominance, and the days would continue to get longer and longer from the 25th of December and that which comes after that. And so, ikhwan, they would celebrate that as the birth of the unconquerable sun, or the unconquered sun, and it was a practice that continued up until the coming, ikhwan, of Isa ibn Maryam. And after Isa ibn Maryam, because ikhwan, Isa ibn Maryam did not come and he was not sent for all and sundry. Isa ibn Maryam was sent for the Yahud, and he was, as occurs in the Bible and likewise occurs in the Quran, that even biblically we have a statement that every Christian will accept, that I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the tribe of Israel, or of the children of Israel, that I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the children of Israel. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran, وَرَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ أَنِّي قَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And I was sent as a messenger to Bani Israel, and I have come to you with signs from my Lord. And so Isa ibn Maryam was not sent, ikhwan, to all and sundry. Rather, he was sent specifically to Bani Israel, which is the difference between, or one of the differences between Isa ibn Maryam and our messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the messenger alayhi salatu wasallam was sent to all of mankind, and likewise to the ins and the jinn, to mankind and the jinn. While Isa ibn Maryam, ikhwan, was sent to Bani Israel. He was sent to Bani Israel, and him being sent to Bani Israel, ikhwan, indicates that he was not for the Gentiles or not for the non-Jews. But after somewhere in the region of 60 or 70 AD, with the coming of Paul. When Paul, who was a Jew, who was originally known as Saul, who claimed, while he was traveling to Damascus, that he saw Isa ibn Maryam in a dream, after being a man that used to kill Christians and used to kill the followers of Isa. He claimed he saw Isa ibn Maryam in a dream, in a vision, and that Isa commanded him to be a Christian, and that he commanded him with a number of rulings that were not in the Injil. And so it was Paul, somewhere in the region of 65 after the ascent of Isa ibn Maryam, that it was Paul who began to preach that the doctrine had changed slightly, that one didn't have to circumcise, that the drinking of wine was permissible in moderation, that you could eat pork, and other than that from the affairs similar, ikhwan, to the affair of the bid'ah creeping in to our ummah and creeping in to the Muslimun at the hands of some of the Yahud, who innovated Shi'ism and so on, and attributed to the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah that which was not present within it. But the point is, ikhwan, that Saul was from those who began to claim that non-Jews could now become Christian, even though Isa was sent to the Yahud. Now Paul began to claim that non-Jews could now become Christian. It was after that non-Jews began to take on board Christianity and began to follow Christianity on the basis of this new opening that Paul claimed was given to him by way of this vision that he saw of Jesus, that allowed him now to call to the Jew and the Gentile. And so there and after, ikhwan, we saw that non-Jews began to enter into the fold or began to follow or become followers of Isa ibn Maryam, and the spectrum was broadened as it relates to those who began to follow Isa ibn Maryam. And what was seen was that there was a large number of non-Jews who had entered into Christianity. Those non-Jews, ikhwan, came with a number of practices. And that initially, ikhwan, those practices, Christian priests and heads of Christendom tried their utmost to nullify and to abolish the practice and the celebration of certain of their pagan festivities. From them, the pagan celebration of Saturnalia. But regardless of their attempts, they were unable to stop the spread and the practice of the celebration of Saturnalia, even among those people who had become Christian. And so what the high priest of Christendom saw was that instead of trying to abolish Saturnalia, and instead of trying to do away with it in completion as it was a pagan custom, they saw that it would make more sense, because we were trying hard to get them to stop it to no avail. So they saw that it would make more sense, instead of abolishing it, that then they made the decision to tame that celebration and to make it into or turn it into a celebration wherein they would celebrate the honor of the Christian Son of God, yani Isa ibn Maryam, as far as they were concerned. And so, ikhwan, it was originally the practice of Saturnalia that was adopted into Christianity because of the fact that the pagans who had become Christian were not able to do away with the practice of Saturnalia. And so it became, and they changed it slightly and tweaked it to become a festivity and a period wherein one honors the Son of God, and it was established on that basis. It then became the birth date of Isa ibn Maryam that eventually became the case, just as it was similarly the celebration of the birth of the new son. And just as it was a celebration of the birth of other pagan gods among other peoples. So it seemed good then for it to be deemed the birthday of the Son of God, wal-iyadhu billah, as far as they were concerned, and it then became the celebration of the birth of Isa, Jesus, the son of Mary. And thus, ikhwan, the 25th of December began to be celebrated with practices that likewise came from their pagan, their original pagan practices. And so, just as during the Roman times they would practice homosexuality and cross-dressing and debauchery, even slaves didn't have to work, and slaves were free to have sexual relations with whomsoever they chose. That on that day it was nothing but drunkenness and orgies and the likes. And during those periods, ikhwan, and because of the fact that they were acquainted with that during Saturnalia, some of that was adopted into the practice of Christianity, though it was toned down, but it was adopted into the practice of Christianity. And so the Celtic pagans, for example, when they would practice Christianity during the same period, they saw, ikhwan, that there were certain plants that they would use during these practices of debauchery and lewdness. They would use certain plants that they held to be symbols of fertility. And so, for example, they would use holly, mistletoe, and these were plants that were seen by the pagan Celtics of the British Isles to be symbols of fertility, and so they continued to use that. And so this custom of kissing under the mistletoe during Christmas was one, ikhwan, that revolved around this pagan custom and this pagan festivity that was filled with sexual malpractice and what have you, but it was toned down. And in our time, now we have kissing under the mistletoe, but it's still that kissing, as I'm sure you're all aware, develops into more than just kissing. But the origin of the practice was that it was a practice among the pagans who were present on the British Isles, because prior to Christianity coming to England, I believe somewhere in the region of about 55 BC, that the British Isles were filled with pagans. We had various types of pagans, many of them being Celtic pagans living on these shores, and to the extent that Caesar, when they sent armies to the shores, they found, ikhwan, that when the Roman armies came to the shores of Britain, that they were met by the shores being lined, or the British shores being lined with rows and ranks of druids. And druids, ikhwan, were wizard type characters that used to daub their faces with a blue paint, and they would have long disheveled hair and wear long gowns, and the women and the men, they would carry out certain practices, returning back to sorcery and magic. And in one of the diaries of one of the Caesar that came to the shore, that he said that verily, and that was Julius Caesar, that he said, verily, when our armies came to the shore, they were met by druids, the women of which began to scream and wave and shake their hair and their heads frantically. And the men began to gesture as though supplicating. And the armies, the Roman armies, prior to actually arriving at the shores, began to find themselves having wounds and cuts and lacerations. Wounds and cuts and lacerations on the basis of this sorcery that was being carried out by the druids, the pagan druids that they found when they came to the shores of Britain. And so these Celtic druids, ikhwan, from their beliefs was that there were certain plants like mistletoe certain plants like holly that were symbols of fertility, pagan symbols of fertility, that they would put and decorate over their homes, over their altars. And so this was likewise incorporated into the practice of Christianity. This was incorporated into the practice of Christianity, of Christmas, afwan. Likewise, ikhwan, from the things that were incorporated into the celebration of Christmas was the burning of the Yule log. And the Yule log, ikhwan, was again returned back to this pagan practice of the worship and the veneration of vegetation and of fire. It returned back to the worship and the veneration of certain types of vegetation and of fire. And so this log that is ordinarily burnt, what is known as the Yule log, and now the only manifestation of it is probably the Cadbury's Yule chocolate Yule log cake. Other than that, ikhwan, we don't really hear much about the Yule log, but it was a practice that was carried out during Christmas, that those who used to celebrate Christmas would burn a log, and that was known as the Yuletide log. And that again returned back to a pagan practice, which was in actuality done, as we said, in worship of vegetation and likewise worshipping fire, and it is associated with magic and with spiritual powers. Similarly, ikhwan, from the affairs that are related, that were incorporated from this paganism, is the belief in that which is related, ikhwan, to the utilization, or rather a practice, that is the affair of drunkenness and alcoholism during the celebration. But during the celebration, ikhwan, it was well known that they would take intoxicants, and those intoxicants were used during the practice of the festivity, and it was on the basis of that, as we mentioned, even children were involved in that and got drunk and were involved in the various types of lewdness that they would involve themselves in. Likewise, ikhwan, from the affairs related to Christmas is, a talk about Christmas cannot be carried out without mentioning him, and that is Father Christmas. Father Christmas, ikhwan, is a character that is in actuality based on, as historians mention, based on a true character that was known as Saint Nicholas. A true character that was known as Saint Nicholas, that was an individual. He was known to be a Christian leader in an area known as Myra, which is modern-day Turkey, and his name was originally Nicholas. His name was originally Nicholas, and he lived in the 4th century AD, and after Christian era. This Nicholas, who became Saint Nicholas, he was known to be a very shy individual, and was known to be a person of piety and a person of righteousness, and was always willing and wanted to aid and support the poor. And so it was said about him, there is a story that is narrated about him, that he climbed onto the roof of the house in his attempt to help a poor family. He climbed onto the roof of a house and dropped a purse of money down its chimney, and that money landed in a stocking that a girl had put by the fire to dry. And so on the basis of this, we have the development of Father Christmas being a character, and this is probably where the white beard comes from, that he was known to be a character of an individual that was righteous and upright and possibly had a beard, and so this belief in Father Christmas being a symbol of Christmas returns back to this affair, or this occurrence. And the term Santa Claus comes from the Dutch term Sinterklaas or Sinterklaas, which was a word that was used for St. Nicholas. And so Santa Claus, having its origin in this St. Nicholas, who was this character, Allah knows best whether the story of his existence is established or not, but that is what is mentioned by some of the historians. Similarly, from the affairs related to Christmas is that which follows Christmas Day, and that is the following year, the 26th of December, which is known as Boxing Day. The term Boxing Day, or this day being referred to as Boxing Day, came about somewhere in the Middle Ages, maybe some 800 or so years ago, when some of the churches would open their alms boxes or their sadaqah boxes, and people would place within them gifts of money and so on, and that money and that sadaqah would be given on Christmas Day. It would be given by Christians on Christmas Day, and it would be placed in these alms boxes or in these sadaqah boxes. And so these sadaqah boxes on the day after Christmas would be taken to the poor people of the neighborhood and would be distributed upon them after Christmas, and it is for that reason that the day is referred to as Boxing Day. That is the day that the charity boxes were emptied and distributed, or the contents of which were distributed upon the poor people of those regions and of those neighborhoods, in those neighborhoods. So we analyze it when we look into the whole of the practice of Christmas, we see that it is a period and a time that returns back to a pagan festival. A festival, Ikhwan, that not only was it not connected to the way of Isa ibn Maryam, but it is likewise something that it diametrically opposes what is even in the Bible. Another one of the issues related to Christmas, for example, and this is an example of how it opposes what Christians are supposed to actually believe in, is that which is related, for example, to Christmas trees. And I'm going to quote to you, Ikhwan, this verse from the Bible, and we're going to round up, Ikhwan, this short kalima around the topic. But there is a passage, Ikhwan, in the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah 10, verse 2 to 5. And listen, Ikhwan, to this verse in the Bible to let you know, Ikhwan, how a people diametrically oppose what is even in their books on the basis of hawa, on the basis of desire, on the basis of following that, Ikhwan, which finds its origin in paganism and not being able to abandon pagan practice. Listen to this verse, Ikhwan. The chapter reads, "Thus says the Lord, thus says the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them." And the heathens, Ikhwan, are the pagans. The heathens are dismayed at them. "For the customs of the people are vain. For one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman, with an axe. They then deck it with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails and with hammers that it does not move. And they are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither also is it in them to do good." And so here we have, Ikhwan, subhanallah, a verse that clearly dispraises the pagan practice of having a Christmas tree. That the customs of the people are in vain, the verse mentions. For one of them cuts a tree out of the forest, the works of the hands of the workman, with his axe, and then he adorns it with silver and gold, and they fasten it with nails. And so the verses, ikhwan, dispraise even the very practice that is symbolic of Christmas. We find the Bible itself is diametrically opposed to such practices. So ikhwan, with that being said, we say then, ikhwan, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the Muslimun with basira and with nur min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. On this day have I perfected for you your religion, and I've completed my favors upon you, and I have chosen for you Islam as your religion. Islam, a deed, ikhwan, that is kamil, complete. And we have no need, ikhwan, to incorporate or adopt the pagan practices of any group of individual. Likewise, we have the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. And whosoever seeks a deen other than Islam, then it will not be accepted from him, and he in the hereafter it will be from among the losers. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the insight and the foresight to see and to understand that Allah has blessed us, ikhwan, with khair and with nobility, with nur ala nur, with light upon light, and it is nothing except for us to turn to it, to study it, to understand it, to make ittiba' of it, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He causes us to die upon it. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى يوفقنا وإياكم لما يحبه ويرضاه وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.